Hello, I am and today I will be teaching you how to make an articulated tail out of foam. To get started, you'll want to cut the paper to fit the size and shape that you'd like. From there, transfer the image to thin foam. This will likely take a few pieces. Once the whole shape is cut out, you'll want to repeat the process one more time for a second layer. The second layer can be sealed to the first with hot glue. To connect the rest of the pieces together, a strip of thin foam that has been coated with hot glue can be placed over the pieces you'd like to connect. Once that's finished, draw gaps into foam vertically along the tail. Okay, one second. Maybe I should explain this a bit better. You know wooden snake toys? They have a bunch of small gaps in them so they can wiggle while keeping form and never going past a set amount of curve? That's basically what we're trying to recreate. Although it all comes down to personal preference, I would suggest you use less gaps and larger chunks. So, larger gaps too. Now, when I speak of foam, I mean foam. It could be green, white, even blue or purple. It doesn't matter, as long as it's not completely disgusting, disintegrating couch foam. And there are other costume pieces that I'd implore you 100% to go out and buy foam for. But since this is just a tail, I'd use your best judgment. You'll glue foam chunks to the tail similarly to these. The second one only has one complete side. Next, the foam will be wrapped in saran wrap, so when duct tape is put over it, it won't stick. This will cover the whole tail. Once it's completely covered, you can mark out the design. It is important to indicate what the direction of the fur will be, along with the color it will be, and where it will go. You can cut them out at this point, but I do suggest to put marks to indicate where they match up. The more pieces you have, the more easily they can get mixed up. Now that all the pieces of duct tape are cut out, they can act as puzzle pieces as to what you are about to make. The duct tape will be placed down on top of fabric, saran side up, and outlined with chalk with seam allowance. At this point, it would be great to get out a sewing machine. Although in my case, because there is so much detail and the fur is so thick, that doesn't really work out. Piece by piece, new sections are sewn on. Seam allowance really comes down to best judgment, as you want holes to be big enough, but also what fits them to be big enough. Because of this, you'll often find yourself with areas that you'll have to look at what you have sewn already, get the piece of duct tape, and adjust to that. Using Sharpie to mark it out isn't advised, as it is permanent or still might bleed a bit, but if it's for something you aren't planning to put in a washer, rather just washing the outside, then it should be good enough. This process is basically continued and repeated until the end, cutting out piece by piece, and then sewing that new piece on. One last tip is to tape back the pieces together of duct tape that have saran wrap on them. This way it's easier to figure out which pieces end up going where, instead of a totally scrambled puzzle of fur that you have to end up sewing back together, which the pieces aren't always the right shape for. Eventually, you get to a point where you can be super proud of all the work that you've put into it, even if you're not quite done. This has been, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace!